Hey everybody, my name is Dion and this is Daryl.
Hiya.
Welcome to Where We Stand, a series where we talk about the games we've recently played and discuss how much we may or may not have enjoyed them. Today we're talking about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is available on the PS4, Xbox One, and the PC. Now that we're queued up and ready to go, let's get started. Daryl, why don't you kick us off with the story?
Sure beans. So I'm going to start this section off by saying that this game is very much about the journey rather than the ending. There are a lot of different ways you could approach the story, but there is a main route you can go. So we'll be going through each of those major plot points there, because if we go through all of them, we'll be here for years. So let's start with the battle between the Spartans and the Athenians. Okay. This is Future Daryl, Editor Daryl here, to tell you that I meant to say Persians here, not Athenians. We ended up kind of getting the two mixed up from the beginning portion, and I didn't even remember until I was editing at this very moment, at least what would be the past by the time you're seeing it, but future compared to the time of the video. You get my point. Either way around, that was my bad. Enjoy the video. Bye. Where you play as Leonidas in the beginning. That kind of serves as your tutorial initially, and I think it sets the tone of at least the conflict very well. What do you think, Dion?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great kicking off point to the game. It's a very enjoyable gameplay session. It kind of sets up the whole conflict in general, which plays throughout the story, right? And it kind of gets you introduced to some major, a major player in the story, which is Leonidas. I know as not as a character being alive, but as a character in general, he is, he plays a big role overall through the story.
Yep. And from there, the game... Sorry, before I get to that point, at the end of that section, Leonidas is betrayed by one of the Spartans, or what? By one of the Spartans? Yes. No. I honestly don't remember who betrays him, but either way around, he is stabbed, but he's Leonidas. So he takes the stab like a champ, kills the dude, and then he falls over dead, and then it flashes forward into present day, or at least present day for the past, where you are brought to either Alexios or Cassandra, whichever character you decided to pick in the beginning of the game. Actually, I think you picked them at the same time that happens. It fades into Layla finding Leonidas' spear. And then,
right.
And from there...
You can pick.
Yeah, from there you can pick. Thank you.
There's two DNA. Oh, I see two DNA traces. That's what happens. You can pick.
Yep. I personally picked Cassandra because I heard she was at least the better acted character. No offense to the actor for Alexios.
And Daryl could kind of cheat it because he played a little later, so he got to research. I chose Alexios, and so I got the worst main character, and the non-canon main character, I might add. So a little unfair, but it is what it is.
I like to jokingly call Alexios grit teeth, or at least I'm doing that now, because he just sounds like he's always talking like he's gritting through his teeth. Except for the
don't rub it in.
Except for the moments when he's actually saying something like outwardly. I'm like, yes, show me your range. No, I am Deimos. Come on, Alexios.
Oh, we're gonna talk about them later. No worries on that.
Either way.
So, I was gonna say what kind of happens after you pick your character, right? You move into dealing with Nicholas, which is your father, and you're on a mountain in the beginning of the game, and you kind of had a vision, or not you, but one of the people in the village had a vision about your characters, and that you kind of need to be destroyed. So they throw you off a cliff. Both you and your sibling go off that cliff. And obviously, you survive because you played through the game.
Yep.
Through that piece. And then, so after that happens, you get thrown into your main character.
Yep. And from there, you start on the island of Kefalonia, which is your starter island. Creatures, characters, and all that are typically like, they're the early levels and whatnot. 1 to 5. The most dangerous animal you'll be fighting on that island is a wolf. Most likely.
True.
I mean, yeah, some of the humans can get kind of strong and whatnot, but Cassandra's kind of a badass, or at least... I'm going to collectively say the main character is a badass, so no big deal on that. You're kind of an understudy / adopted child of... I don't want to say understudy. You're a mercenary, but you work for a little bit under Marcos, who loves...
Useless.
Yeah, he's useless. But he's hilarious, but he is useless. He likes get rich quick schemes and whatnot. You know this. But eventually you learn about your father being alive and leading Sparta, or being a general in the Spartan army, somewhere off in, I can't remember the location specifically where you find him, but you just have to leave Kefalonia in general to go find him. So you get a ship, and it's under that guy named Elepanor, who kind of ties into the next major plot point. While working under Elepanor, who honestly couldn't give two shits about you, it simply is just ordering around like a dog to go to X place and Y place, you learn about the Cult of Cosmos and Deimos, who turns out to be the sibling you thought was dead the whole time. If you want to take it from there, Dion.
Yeah, and you I think I want to really highlight, you have this really cool mission where you go undercover, and this is how you really find out about them in the first island, but you go undercover at this newer place, and you get to go into their little hideout and see all of them. The guys you're going to be hunting down here. Mm-hmm. And then, Deimos is looking for a traitor. They find out there's some traitor in there, which is obviously you. And he or she looks for you, finds out who you are, but gives you a pass because you have a similar vision when you touch the apple, I believe.
Yes.
This is the apple of Eden, which is a great reference to Assassin's Creed 2. So you touch that, and you guys have the same vision, and she lets you kind of go by saying it wasn't you, but she wants to talk to you later. And then you proceed to escape, of course.
Which, by the way, let me point out, this is the most Assassin's Creed that the game can get, because besides that, it's not Assassin's Creed.
Oh, yeah, that is it. That is the most Assassin's Creed you're going to get right there, and that is it. There is no more, at least for the base.
But going from there, real quick, let me just point out that this game also introduces a lot of branching paths and branching storytelling bits and things you can do to really derail things if you're not careful, or at least derail things into a path that you probably don't want to go. So the reason I'm bringing this up now is because after you deal with that, after you find out your brother's alive and whatnot, you start hunting. You have a side objective / main objective, depends on how much you want to prioritize it, where you're killing members of the Cult of Cosmos. Elepanor, who's been bossing you around and whatnot, is of the Cult of Cosmos. He's been supplying weapons to both the Athens and the Spartans, essentially further fueling the war between them. You decide that he's hiding stuff from you, and you actually decide this. Now that I'm remembering this in fragments, forgive me. You discover this when you confront your father, Nicholas, who, again, is a general of Sparta and has an adopted son named Stentor. He's a bit of a piece of shit, but I forgive him. Whatever. You have the choice of whether you want to kill Nicholas or not. If you don't kill him, I didn't kill him. He tells you to look out for snakes in the grass and whatnot. Then that got Cassandra thinking, So then you go back to Elepanor. Elepanor, essentially says, okay, now you found your father. Cool. Did you kill him? I think you have the option to tell him that you didn't, or that you lie and say he's been taken care of, because you just have to bring his helmet. So you essentially just bring the helmet, and he just takes it as, yeah, you did it. So now you have to go kill your mother. But then you realize, wait, my mother's alive too? Then you get this dialogue option that says, fuck you, I'm not being controlled anymore. And by that point in the game, I had already made my original island sick, thanks to a side quest that I didn't know mattered. And it was from that point on when I was like, okay, things matter in this game, even if it's a side quest. Mm-hmm. Fuck you, Elepanor. I'm going to kill you right now. You don't get the chance to kill him right then and there because guards, so you have to go chase him later. But either way around, that all happens. From there,
we gotta talk about Athens. I think you gotta.
Yeah, I was. Well, no, that happens before Athens.
So then we go to Athens to help the other side, right? Because they gotta introduce you to the bad of each side.
Yeah, or the perceived bad.
Good. Yeah, perceived bad of each side, because Athens has its own things, and the Athenians have their own things, and Spartans have their own things. We'll talk about the environment in Athens a little later.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
But we'll talk a little bit about, going there. I think this is where you meet a lot of your historical figures, Socrates.
Oh, he's
Cleon,
great.
Alcibiades. You can see everyone, and they all have their own personality, which is kind of goes into how they're how they're thought of as historical figures. And this is where you go into that whole discussion, and you get to play around in Athens for a while. Athens actually plays a big part in the game. You're kind of about your halfway point in the game, which I think is the biggest thing we want to talk about in Athens. Is you get Athens kind of falls because Cleon betrays and takes over the original guy that's leading the groups, and his wife. Forgot his wife's name, but basically we have to make our escape from Athens, and everyone turns on us. It's a very interesting play on what happens, I think.
Yeah, essentially. That's also when you... Obviously, we're talking spoilers here, so there you go. That's also when you lose your... I'm going to say your little sister figure, Phoebe. She's also killed in the midst of that. You meet Phoebe originally in Kefalonia. She's always attached to Cassandra's hip, sees her as like an older sister figure, and no matter how many times you tell her to stay out of trouble and just not get involved, she does it anyway. But she's got a strong head on her shoulders. Unfortunately, that also got her killed later. Well, I'm not gonna say it got her killed. She just so happened to be killed, and that hurt. But after all that, you go off to continue finding your mother, because the reason you're in Athens to begin with is because your father / Elpenor tell you to go find your mother. Her name is Myrine. Myrine. I don't know how to pronounce her name correctly, but you go to find her. You go to Athens. You search for her there. You also meet Brasidas there, who is a Spartan who's more in the ways of let's not have senseless bloodshed, which is weird for a Spartan to say, but that's how he operates. Mm-hmm. And from there, you learn that Myrine is off on some other island in the distance. So you go to said island. That island is
very far distance, I might add.
Yes.
Very far away.
Yes.
Why? I do not know. Anyway,
it's inhabited by pirates, but she ran with those pirates for a bit. And so long as you have enough drachmi, that's the currency in Greece. This game takes place in Greece, by the way.
Ancient Greece. We'll talk about that later.
So long as you have enough drachmi, I love saying that word, to pay the leader of that island, then she'll give you the information you need, and eventually you do find your mother, who is kind of a badass. I'm not gonna lie, which shouldn't surprise anyone, considering that you're both, you being her son or daughter, and her being the I'm gonna say great granddaughter or granddaughter, one of the two of Leonidas. If you want to take it from there, Dion, how did you feel about that twist? Assuming you saw it.
It was. I didn't see it coming, but yeah, it was great. I thought mother would be dead.
I did
why
too.
not?
I thought she'd be dead too.
She wasn't. She just wasn't dead, and she was just like a killer throughout the whole game. I mean, I just didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah.
But she's like all about it, all about the fights, all about and everything. But she is of Sparta, so. But usually, you use her, and this is like the moment where you're like, okay, we got to get our family back together. We got Nicholas, we didn't kill him, which I regret not killing him, but whatever. Nicholas, not killing him. Then you kind of get Deimos. You need to go find Deimos now.
You try to convince him a lot throughout the game to come with you, and he in my case he almost always looks like he wants to. He's going to, but he's pushing the cult forward and whatnot. And I couldn't decide whether or not he's not like the main leader. He's not the ringleader. He's just essentially their attack dog, and he knows it too. But it looks like it always looked like he was pushing the cult of Cosmos and whatnot to hide from the fact that he is angry about what happened and whatnot. And the only reason, I'm going to say this real quick and then I'll throw it back to you, Dion. The only reason he's like that is because one of the cultists got to him and took him when he was a baby from the doctors who were able to like get him back to a stable enough condition to live after being thrown off the cliff. They lied to Mirren, saying that Deimos, I'm just gonna put it as a blatant statement since we don't know if it's Cassandra or Alexios between the two of us. She didn't know that Deimos was still alive because the cult has their hands in every aspect of ancient Greece. So they lied to her. Now Deimos belongs to the cult. He was raised in the cult, and you have the chance to kill that said person who did that to him. Dion?
Very much worth killing, by the way.
Yes.
He was a baby.
Yes.
Then, so after you find Deimos, you fight Deimos in this freaking crazy ass boss fight. That's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a huge war, and you fight her in the middle, and they're freaking strong, by the way.
Yeah. He has telegraphs.
I think I've died 3 or 4 times. Like it was a little bit challenging, unexpectedly.
I did not
honestly. Die. Well, of course you didn't. I should have known. You fight Deimos, and then you can kind of either convince Deimos to come and part of your family again, or you can end the life. That's your choice.
And that happens.
Want to do there.
And that happens a little after he. I don't know if it's possible that he doesn't, but at least in my game, that happens a little after he kills Brasidas, who by then you may or may not have liked. For me, Brasidas was a bro, but because of the game is how it is, and how it keeps track of my actions, he didn't like me at all. By that point, but
there's only one decision that determines if you like you or not, and he liked me because I knew because I researched, but.
I did too. I just chose, in that earliest moment, there's a moment in Athens where you have to essentially liberate a city in Athens from an underground crime lord, essentially. And Brasidas, is saying, no, he has to die, but we should kill him out in public because we don't want to get the public bloodthirsty. We should kill him in secret so that, the city is safe, but people, are none the wiser, and essentially. And I was originally going to do that, but then the woman came in there and was like, no, don't kill him yet. You have to kill him out there. And I was like,
he was fooled.
Yeah, I was like,
Fooled.
Well, here's the thing. I guess this is just where me and Brasidas just beg to differ. We just differ on this. I'm like, no, I made the conscious decision there to be like, he's not gonna like this, but I'm not gonna lie. The people need this kind of satisfaction, so I outright killed. I killed him out in public. Brasidas originally didn't. He mentions it later, but he's still more or less cool with you. He's just like, okay, you messed up. I didn't agree with you, but you know what? The problem's still solved. I guess I'll let it slide. But then, and I'll complain about this later, because sometimes the game does this. Later on, you have the choice of saving, or at least turning a cult member over to your side. And for some reason, it gives you the option of saying, like, hey, the mongrel's no longer involved and whatnot, and to say there, so no one's holding, I think it was the mongrel, but essentially, you saved that person, that cult member's family and whatnot, because I chose to save them, because I'm like, no, I want to do this Brasidas' way. So I do that, and then I go tell him, and he's like, well, you killed the mongrel in cold blood out in public. So why should I trust you? Then he drew his blade. And I'm like, okay, first of all, game, why would you even give me the choice if that was already predetermined from that one moment? You have all these other fucking decisions I can make in this game, and you remember the most menial things I do, but you can't make a case or a state for that.
No. Every decision matters. Sorry.
But that's the thing. Every decision matters, but in that moment, okay, first of all, for him to do,
you only have one chance to make him happy. That's just how.
But you have had to know this before that happened, and I get that. Your actions have consequences and whatnot. But what bothers me isn't how the guy reacted when I had to kill him. Was what really got to me was the fact that when you go up the hill, and I'm like, oh, I got to tell Brasidas I killed this guy, but at least I should have a dialogue option because they're typically good at this in this game, to tell him that I did try to convince him otherwise, but I had to defend myself. You're gonna be pissed either way, but the context will be different. One will be like, I killed him because I didn't trust him, or whatever, and the other will be like, I tried, then he pulled his sword on me. You can still be mad, Brasidas, but know that I did try. You didn't get that option. You only had a binary decision there. I'm like, this game is really good at not being binary with the decisions most of the time. This was one of the times where I'm like, you didn't have to be binary. Why do I have to choose why do I have to choose I killed him or some other option that doesn't matter? Because when you tell Brasidas that, oh, I killed the guy, Cassandra doesn't even say, like, I tried to tell him X, Y, and Z. She says, I killed him. He's a danger to society. Or something like that. And I'm like, Cassandra, tell him the thing. Tell him that you did try. He could still be mad. I get the end result will more or less be the same. But this game's flexible enough with a lot of its cast that typically those little nuances do have some effect. So Brasidas could, if I followed the game's logic up to that point and whatnot, and on, the last year we see Brasidas before Deimos kills him, Brasidas could have instead been like, you killed the mongrel because you made a stupid decision to stand there. You did try to convince, I won't deny that you did try to convince that the other guy that, you should come back to your family and whatnot and not be with the cult anymore. I'll admit you did try. I'm still mad at you though. You still fucked up. That's more contextually sound based off of other things that have occurred in the game. But I guess they didn't have a state tracking that, because now Brasidas just acts like you're outright killing everyone.
Well, it's tracking that one decision. That's just how it works for this. I mean, they probably ran out of time. Or
I'm going to chalk that up to time, yes. It's just,
it is one portion of the game where they failed to keep it multiple ways for it to work out.
Yeah, and it's towards the end, so frankly, I could also understand, like...
It's halfway.
Yeah. By the time you're talking to him, you're on the beach, you're on your way to kill Cleon, and then after you kill Cleon, Deimos shows up, and you're talking about the second time. I thought you meant the first decision. Okay, yeah, that's not yeah.
The second time, yeah, it's way later.
Yeah.
To get back to the story we're talking about,
that was just my rant. It did tie in a little bit, but yeah, that was just my brief rant.
After you found Deimos, you tried to save him, then the game, it's kind of like you can have multiple endings here. My ending was good. My family comes back together. We're all happy.
I had the same ending.
I want to say Nikolai was also alive and part of the family as well, but I don't remember necessarily.
Nicholas?
Yes, Nicholas.
Yeah. He, for me, he was there. I originally spared him because I was like, no, you're going to live with the fact that you fucked up. That's how I was. I'm not satisfied with just killing someone. That's too easy.
Agreed. And I actually wanted to kill him, but I knew I wanted a good ending. So blah blah blah. But what I will say is, overall the story was enjoyable. Obviously, it hit Daryl in some directions. He wanted a certain reactions, and he couldn't get those reactions.
Yeah, but overall, the story was...
In general, the story was good. The side quests?
The side quests were great, too.
Great.
I love
there's just so many good little stories. A little story about the mother that kills, that raises them and that kind of stuff. That was really interesting. That was a really cool aspect that I don't think Assassin's Creed usually, usually doesn't get into this kind of level, even though this is, I would say it's not really an Assassin's Creed story in a little bit. In some ways, it's not, and I just think they nailed the story. In my opinion, I think it keeps you engaged. I do think there's a lot of filler, just because the game is so freaking
it's
huge.
Extra thick.
It's really good. There's a really cool side quest on one of the islands where it's like the island with the Cyclops. And then you can fight the Cyclops. You actually get to find the Cyclops in the end. And it's like one of those bosses. You got these 4 magical bosses. I think the Cyclops is one of them. And you actually find them then. What a freaking amazing story. The kid tries to trick you. And it was great. Those type of stories in this game is why I feel like they nailed it. They nailed copying The Witcher 3, which was really the point. That's really kind of what they were going for, in my opinion. And I think they nailed it.
I will also say that it's very easy to miss all that, because although I knew of the magical beasts and I was looking for them, by the time I got there's so much stuff in the game that I honestly forgot about them to an extent. So I didn't even know that that was a thing that Dion just mentioned. I knew that the magical beasts were. I just didn't know about that fight and whatnot.
And it's cool too, because you got to go in this maze. It's like the story you hear like the actual Greek fictional story that they have about him. Oh no, it's not this. It's not Cyclops. It's the Minotaur.
Oh, that makes more sense.
The Minotaur, and they actually have this whole fictional story, and you follow how he won the maze. It is phenomenal. Like, wow.
I will also point out that tone wise, this game's story, although it has a lot of dark moments, a lot of heavy moments. Overall, if I'm comparing it to like something like say Origins, since it came right before it, it leans a lot more on comedy than it does.
Agreed.
Than Origins did. Origins was very, story wise, it was very much what you would expect for the tone of Assassin's Creed. But this game's you have the MC shoving an obsidian eye. That's this guy that this, I'm going to say bully, because he wasn't much when I fought him, on Kefalonia. He needed that, and you needed a ship commander. And by the way, I forget his name, and I hate that I do, because the guy who's your, I'm going to say, like, is your first mate on your ship. Yes, you have a ship in this game. He's great. He's freaking hilarious. I love him. But you meet him there. And the bully, the big dude, I forget his name. He's like, "No, that's my obsidian eye. Give that back to me." And this goat walks by, and in my game, Cassandra just looks at the goat and is like, "Oh, you want this eye?" You don't see her actually do it on screen. It kind of like you see like her top half, but she grabs the goat by the tail, just shoves it up its ass, and spanks it, and it has it run off. And she's like, "There you go get it." I'm like, "Wow, I like this. I like her." And even then it keeps up, because you'll find a lot of comedic moments as well throughout the main story, but there's one that I hate saying literally, but literally had me like almost on the floor laughing. Was there's a portion towards the end of the game where you need to essentially earn your citizenship back in Sparta if you're going the Spartan route. So you have two things you have to do. You have to win the Olympics, or help the person who's supposed to win the Olympics. You're supposed to go get him and have him win, or aid him in winning. And you also have to secure this territory in a conquest fight. I secured the territory first because I'm like, it's combat, quick, easy, done, nice. If you're of level. By then I was decently leveled, but the game keeps tracking your levels pretty well. So if you're two levels ahead, it'll trail 2 levels behind until you fall back a little bit. Because I did fall back a little bit towards the end because I just wanted to finish it. But anyway,
it happened to me as well. Yeah.
Yeah. But the Olympics thing, you find the guy and you kind of already assume that there's something's going to happen to him, so that I have to be the one to participate in the Olympics. But the way it happens is you get him and he's drunk and whatnot, and you could have gotten like the oil to like oil him up and whatnot, but I chose not to because I'm like, I'm not going to endanger this woman's relationship with her master because she's enslaved and whatnot, and she's in a good spot. I think she was in a good enough spot to possibly be able to buy her freedom, or not buy her freedom, but at least have a good standing, so she's not on the bad side of her master. I'm like, I'm not going to jeopardize her position like that. So I didn't get the oil. I got the dude. He didn't care too much, seemingly, because he was still drunk about the oil. And oh boy, he slips off the dock into the water, and Cassandra and one of the dudes is like, "Oh no, he fell off the dock." And Cassandra's like, "Relax, I'm pretty sure he can swim. He's an Olympian." And then they look back down in the water, and it's just full of blood because the sharks are eating him up. And Cassandra's just like, "Oh." Like,
I remember that.
Like, no.
I remember that. That was hilarious. And there's all those types of points in the game. And one thing I do want to make before we move on to characters, I know we've been on the story for a while, but 30 seconds quickly. I just want to compare to Odyssey on story-wise. Not Odyssey. Origins on story. The Origins story really relates to Assassin's Creed more, right? Because
yes.
The origins of Assassins, right? That's why it's a big part of the story. But I honestly could tell you that I enjoyed this story more than I enjoyed Assassin's Creed origin story.
I agree.
And I know it doesn't relate, but it just there's just so many things and so many good points that I just thought pacing was better. I thought everything about it was an improvement on that game. except that it wasn't an Assassin's Creed story, which is weird.
From an Assassin's...
So
go ahead.
That's all, I mean, that's all I want to say before we move into characters.
Sure. I'm just going to piggyback on that for like 20 seconds. Probably less. For Assassin's Creed story, I preferred Origins, but if we're talking strictly like as a story in general, Odyssey trumps it easily. In my opinion, I will say that if Origins side came after Odyssey and Odyssey was already how it was, Origins might have been a completely different game. But you might have seen if you haven't watched that video, it's over there. Our opinions on Origins and its story. So if you want to know more about that, it's there. But for now, we're gonna move on to the characters.
Characters. All right, let's talk characters. We're gonna go. This will be a relatively short session, I think.
Sure.
Cassandra or Alexios. All right. This one is personal to me because I chose the wrong character. All right. I want to start with Alexios. Right. I didn't actually think Alexios was that bad, but Cassandra is significantly better, and that's the problem with Alexios. Alexios is very he is one-dimensional as a character. I don't get it. He's just very much the strong Spartan who kills everything, which they play on, by the way, that you're just amazing, and you could do all these crazy things, and you're that person, this crazy mercenary. And Alexios is just that, and he's just, Daryl would say he's flat.
I'd say flat.
He's very flat. He's very monotone. He's very consistently the same. Where Cassandra has a lot more. You can tell the actress playing her has a lot more fun with the character. Plays, or gets the jokes better, and and just really and takes over the character. And I think that's why you feel that way. But the story beats are the same and similar, and their backstory is similar. So the character development is there, but the tone and how the character acting is different. And that's all I can say. But then the character as Demos, I think, is not as strong in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the character makes complete sense, right? The character was taken. I had Cassandra as Demos, so the character is really. They act like you expect a person who's been raised by these evil people the whole time. It takes a long time. I mean, you fight this Demos person, you fight them at least 3 or 4 times. They're just like, all right, look, I've explained this to you 5 times. Can you turn the other leaf? It takes a while. And I think that's what helps these characters, is it takes a while for them to really build and turn if they want, because the game is so long. It just takes forever. And that's why I like the characters. I think they did a good job with both, even though Alexios' acting could be improved.
Which is interesting because despite me saying that Alexios is flat, because I think he's definitely flat, I think I'd much prefer him in the role of Deimos because of his one-noted nature, because that role serves him better. And I feel like if I played as him as a character, that flatness would have been accentuated. I like Cassandra's range and whatnot, and how the actress's range and just the voice direction and whatnot for Cassandra or for the actress works in Cassandra's favor, and it works for being a main protagonist. But Alexios' one nature and whatnot, I would not want to have him as a protagonist. I'm not sure what the voice director might be telling the actor, but it doesn't serve well for a protagonist. But as an antagonist, I won't lie. Sometimes he came off as very intimidating. He demands a lot. So when I make fun of that, I am Deimos, I am strong, and whatnot, it sounds one note and odd outside, as a protagonist, but from the cult's perspective, from an antagonist perspective, it works. It's not great, but it works better than being a protagonist. So I feel like go ahead.
And I had Cassandra as Demos, and I don't think she was phenomenal as Demos either.
See?
If I can say so myself.
Maybe Deimos is just bad. Maybe there's a third character here, and we're just gonna say Deimos. It's just awkward.
It's just how it is, and that's how we feel about those characters.
Yeah.
But, I really think having the selection of choice between the choice, which I kind of feel a little weird about that because I feel like, oh, now that we finally have a chance to play, female main antagonist, they give you a choice versus just playing the female assassin. They should have just made the assassin the female, even though she's not an assassin.
But we know the reasons why.
But they made the choice, so it is what it is, and they continue that. They decide to continue that decision into the next game. So let's talk a little bit about Phoebe. You've mentioned her briefly, and obviously you like the character. Phoebe's great. She's just that little sister character you feel a lot for. They do kill her, which was... I thought she was gonna make it. I mean, there's a lot of things that I thought would happen, and it just doesn't. Like I thought she was good for.
That was spoiled for me.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, I didn't know. I just didn't know it was coming, and she died, and I was very sad. And I really like the character. Like she would, and you don't just you leave Athens before the fall of Athens. So you leave Athens for a little bit, and she does different things. I think she goes under a different master for a little bit.
Yeah, she gets a legit job running around Athens doing stuff. I'm thinking you have this little girl running around,
and she goes to different islands.
You said what?
And she goes to different islands too.
Yes, I'm like. I guess I was approaching it with my own sensibilities. I'm like, I have to remember, this is Greece, but even then, this is a child. But even then, she can hold her own. Like there is one mission you have with Phoebe. Well, you have a few with her, but there's one where you legitimately have the chance to be like, okay, no, you can't help me with this, or yes, you can. I decide, you know what, Phoebe, sure, help me with it. And her goal was just to keep the guy distracted as I looted things. No. It was the other way around. I kept him distracted as she looted things. As she would give you hints as to what to say in the back.
Yep, and she was smart. She was a smart character and very, very much well liked.
Yeah, she was really good. 100%. Sometimes she gave me a headache, but I'm the oldest of two brothers. So that gives me a bias towards finding her annoying when she does things. I'm like, just listen to me for once. Stop doing this. Oh, do it again? Okay. Bye, Cassandra.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely her character type. Just like another child. And so other than Phoebe, there's CS we talked about Marine, we talked about Nicholas, so I'm going to kind of skip those. We talked about Marcos.
We talked about Brasidas.
Yeah, so we talked about all those characters. They're pretty good characters, all in all. Marcos can go do something with his life, but every other character that we mentioned is a good character.
I'm convinced he's dead on my island because I got that thing sick.
I sure hope so, unfortunately. And then there's Layla, who is the equivalent to... What's the other guy's name?
She's the modern day protagonist in a much less significant presence. Desmond Miles.
Desmond, that loser. Okay.
Oh, God.
He's like her.
They don't... Once again, well, she has a significant presence in the Atlantis DLC. I just didn't play that DLC. Once I realized how big it is, I'm like, you know what? I'm good, but I'll take their word for it that hey, this is going to involve a lot of things. Like Cassandra. Well, technically Cassandra too. It involves her a lot, or whoever you're playing as, whoever your protagonist is. It involves them a lot. It involves Layla. That's probably the most Layla you'll get, but they continue the trend of her not being as significant as Desmond.
Right, and it doesn't end with this game. And you get to play Layla in the beginning a little bit and the end, similar to...
And in the middle.
Really.
You have at least...
And in the middle.
You have at least one point where you have to get out of the Animus and talk to your new assistant. Yeah, your new assistant. I think her name's Alice. I don't remember off the top of my head. But, yeah.
Yeah,
they're not very... Honestly, I wanted to hear more about some of the other crew that she had that were apparently around London or wherever as well. Because I'm like, you have a crew? Okay, well, I need to know more about them. And I liked the Assassin's Creed Syndicate reference that she made about when she mentioned as you're looking out the window. I wonder how Jacob and Evie will react to modern London. I was like, oh, cool. You mentioned them. I thought you guys just forgot about that game. Okay.
Yeah, there's a few references like that actually that she mentions, but they're mostly good. We'll talk more about Layla in Valhalla for sure. She plays a more significant role there. Well, not really. It's not more time played as her, but there's more significant story beats with Layla in the next game. In this game, though, Atlantis does what a little bit of what happens that I know of is she at least kills her sister, which is an important point. All right, you got to know that for the next part because they don't go over that in the next game. What happened? She kills whatever her assistant is. So,
okay. Which
that's important to know for Layla. I recommend. I've heard the Atlantis DLC is good. I played the first part as like the first little chapter, and it was good. So it's definitely worth playing, I think. But we did not get the opportunity to play because Valhalla is already out, and we were trying to beat games and move forward. So
yeah,
next time. So let's talk a little bit about the world. We did hit on the historical figures already, so I want to talk a little bit about the world if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Ancient Greece. Can I just say? I don't even want to shoot me for this. It is the best open world they've had.
Yeah, I'm loading my gun. I'm just kidding.
It is the best open world. I love Greece. I love Greece. It was so well designed from a variety standpoint. You got to go all these different little islands. It's cool. I hate boats. I hate the whole boat aspect. That could just be removed and I would be even happier. But the world and how it looks, the graphics, how Athens looks. Oh my goodness, Athens. Can I just say how beautiful Athens is? And how big it is? And how I feel like Athens feels like its own game. Like that's huge. And we go to the top where the biggest point in Athens, you can see like the whole city. Oh, it's just so good. I just really loved ancient Greece and what they brought to it. The statues, they showed everything on the statues. They even showed the private parts, which did not expect to happen, but they did. They didn't even take that out. They made it very authentic. I just really like that.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm more of a fan of a few other different worlds of Assassin's Creed, but I will say that Ancient Greece is definitely one of their best. They're one of their best and most interesting and most varied ones. And I'd argue, I was gonna say I'd argue that this is the most vertical one, but no, it's not the most it's not the most vertical. Well, no,
it might be.
No, it definitely. You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna go.
It is.
It is, but
because the mountains.
Yeah, I'm thinking about in comparison to Origins, which is very much flat because it's desert outside the pyramids, so I don't expect it to be. But this game is like, okay, this is the city. It starts from here, where we're at, all the way up that mountain. And by the way, yeah, there's a synchronization point up there, so you might want to climb that mountain and synchronize at the top of it and watch your bird fly around you for the 15th time in the game. So
yeah, remove the sequences, please.
You can skip those. You can skip
small complaint.
You can.
I know.
No. You can skip them in Origins.
Press a button. No one wants to see that.
You can skip them in Origins. I don't think you can't skip them in this game.
Because they want to show off the world. Because honestly, anything
it's
you
a world
can see,
of flex.
you can go to.
Yeah.
I mean, I was literally posting pictures in Discord, and I don't post pictures of games in Discord.
No, he really doesn't.
But I had to because it looked so good. I couldn't.
But yeah, the Ancient Greece is very open. The islands vary with tall mountains and peaks and low valleys and caves. The caves annoy me the most though because Cassandra feels the need to jog in the caves rather than go full sprint because she has great movement speed. But in the cave, she's like, I'm just jogging. I don't know what. Look.
You never know what's going to come around the corner, Daryl. Like, come on, give her a break.
She is a Spartan. Damn it. But there are large scale cities and back alleys and whatnot that you don't want to be caught in, and plazas full of merchants and whatnot. Like the world can vary significantly from like the biggest scenery to like the smallest details, and almost everyone has a fucking side quest for you.
Oh yeah,
and I'd argue a lot of them are worth doing, but there's so many. That's why my memory earlier, by the way, was spotty, because for a lot of sections of the game, I'm like, I got caught up with side quests, so I don't always remember every story beat. Like between each major story beat, I'd say like every 3 story beats, there are at least 10 side quests I've done between them. And they will always take me to a completely different island. It's like Final Fantasy 14. I need you to do this side quest, but I need you to like teleport or fly all the way over here to this undisclosed location and then come back to me. Or go all the way over there, finish the quest, and now you're just there. So you have to fast travel back if you want to fast travel. Most of the time, I didn't fast travel because, coming back to Odyssey, most of the time I didn't want to fast travel in Odyssey because I liked I'm gonna say hunting, but it's more like I liked the free approach to camps and forts. I know that's a very this is gonna fall into gameplay a little bit, but yeah, I liked the way that those were set up because in Origin,
what was the forts?
Yeah, the forts, the camps.
Well, yeah, let's talk about forts a little bit later if we're gonna talk about the gameplay, or are you just talking about the idea of how they look?
I'm mostly talking about how they looked and their various sizes and whatnot. And I was going to get into detail about the approaches, but the approaches are gameplay, so I will say that for later. But I will just say that they're typically open enough that you're like, I can literally come from whichever direction I want. There were times where I just camped out over a camp. Like there's this one Spartan camp. I know I was on the side of Sparta, but for some reason they have memory loss, so I could wipe out a Spartan camp and no one's gonna say anything.
Yep, they just let it go as long as you fight in the war.
Yeah, they don't care.
Oh, good.
They seemingly don't care. This was an awkward time though, because I definitely I have one point where. And this is where the map and the mountains come into play. I literally did stand on top of a rock over this camp because they decided to build in this ditch. This very big ditch. I don't know what you would call it. But that's where they had their little camp. So I was like, oh, those are enemies. So I started, raining arrows down on them and killing them. And then I was like, okay, now to continue my quest. I clicked the quest marker. It's in the camp. The quest marker's in the camp where I just slaughtered everyone around the guy I have to talk to. So I go down there and I'm like, he's gonna be mad, isn't he? I talk to him, he's like, oh, there you are. I'm like, I just killed your men.
Every single one of them.
and then Cassandra has the nerve to be. It's not her fault. It's my fault. But she has the nerve to be like, yes, as you know, my blade stands with Sparta. I'm like, I just killed every Spartan in this camp. I didn't know this is where I had to be. That's the other thing. Regardless of which side you're on, it seems, I've been mostly speaking from a Spartan perspective, but...
Well, you don't really pick sides.
Yeah, well,
I mean, in the end, it's Sparta no matter what.
Yeah, in the end, you're a mercenary at the end of the day. You're just doing jobs and whatnot for either side. They're both aware of that. It's not until towards the end where you're really pledging your allegiance to one side. More or less.
Well, you only go Sparta, right? There's no other option.
I thought Athens was an option. Is it not an option?
I don't think so. I think it just plays into the story that you're from Sparta.
Oh, interesting. Well, yeah. You're canonically from Sparta, but I just thought you can side with Athens.
No, because it goes into how your story goes. So you don't really choose a side. It's like a.
Well,
it's fluid. Let's go with it. It's
very
fluid.
It's very
the sides
fluid.
don't matter. You kill who you want to kill, and
yeah.
That's how it is.
Point is, regardless if you're on their side or not, you can kill them. You just can't kill your main quest giver, it seems, until after you finish the quest. Then you can kill them. I've done that before. Moving on. What were you gonna say?
Let's just talk slightly about ships here.
My favorite ship is the one I had between the Doctor and Cassandra.
Really? Because I thought ships were boring. I don't even know what the point of having ships in this game.
Oh, no. I was making a pun. I was making a ship pun about the romance in this game. I was making a joke. That's all.
Oh, I did not catch it.
It's.
I was just saying the ships suck, man. Is all I wanted to say.
I personally really liked the ships. I liked the naval combat in Black Flag, so I knew I was gonna like it here, especially with the improvements made. But I liked. I don't know. I could get stuck, just upgrading my ship and destroying other ships, and even just boarding and Spartan kicking their generals into the water. It's because
that part was cool.
Because they can't swim. They can only swim if they have access to a shore nearby. Then they'll swim to it and they'll be fine. But otherwise, they drown, which is hilarious. I just watch. I sound like a psychopath the more I talk.
I do agree that, but as a world aspect, I didn't like it. But I guess the fighting between ships, where you get to board the ship, was cool. I will say that. I will agree. Well, let's talk about. But we keep hitting on the gameplay. You obviously want to talk about gameplay, so let's talk about gameplay. I think we have to talk combat first. I think it just makes sense. I will say the combat definitely shifted. This is where it makes a full shift.
Yep.
But it is not Origins combat, and I say that happily. It was definitely improved. The camera angles were normal. They didn't try to do like a close-up cinematic feel. It was just like a good camera angle.
If you played The Witcher 3, that's how the combat kind of plays to an extent. Just tighter,
more fluid.
Yeah,
it's a little more fluid. Yeah,
it's tighter and better than The Witcher 3's combat, which is the only real detriment I would ever give The Witcher 3. Is that its combat was weak, but
yeah, it's definitely better than that combat.
Yeah,
and it has 4 skills you can use, right?
But I'm just saying in terms of like how the combat flows is very much similar to how Witcher 3's flows. It's not the exact same thing, but the camera distance and how much you could do you could do a lot more in combat here. Just camera was my main issue with Origins, and I'm fine with anything that's like, okay, let's zoom out a bit and let you see how many people you're going to be laying waste to here. Continue, Dion.
So I would say you get to use like 4 different skills. I would say the only bad part about combat is that assassination isn't as I wouldn't say not essential, because you do use it and you do need to use it, but it's not as like pushed. Maybe you can literally run in and just kill people. Like it is. You can obviously just make it all about fighting.
Yeah.
Though you will probably die a couple times if you do that. But
you could.
You have 4 skills. They fleshed it out to make it like a actual fighting mechanic, right? So that's what I like about it.
You can get so overpowered with some of the skills. Like I primarily, if I want to just have fun fighting normally, I could. Like I typically use the sword. I only use the sword. I use like maybe a hammer like once or twice, but I typically use my sword, and the sword, the spear, short spear combo, or the broken spear, Leonidas' spear combo, because that was just more fun to me. Yet you have an ability where you can like stab someone's shield and then like rip it out of their hands. So like, you don't have a shield anymore, and it also does like AOE area effect damage and stuns people. Also, you have an ability where somehow, and you can do this in stealth. You could like just chuck the spear, the Leonidas spear across the I'm gonna say fort just for a distance thing.
Amazing, by the way.
Yeah. You can just
boom and you assassinate him.
Yeah, so you can just throw it, stabs him, and then you can upgrade so you can have like a chain of up to like 3 or 4 people that you do it.
I know you just go boom, boom, boom. I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
I'm like, this is broken, but it's cool.
Like,
I'll take it.
It made the assassinating. So I'm always a big fan of the assassination aspects every time, but I really enjoyed that ability. I think it just made the assassination a little bit more. It give you an idea of how to approach a combat a little bit different. Like you could easily pick out 4, so you got to find a way to do that. And I thought that was cool. I like that skill.
It's also
one of my first skills. Level 9 is when I got that specifically.
Yeah, combat in this game is also just much more brutal by nature because Alexios/Cassandra does not play. They don't fuck around in combat. Like they'll do finishers, outright finishers. People like they'll snap. You'll sneak and stab someone through the neck, push them to the ground, drag the broken spear around so it also snaps their neck, and then you pull it out of their other side of their neck. I'm like, why did you have to be that brutal? What did he do to you?
Hey man, ancient Greece. This is all we gotta do.
Yeah, clearly. I'm like, okay.
They nailed it.
Oh boy. And then I'm not surprised whenever someone's like, oh, it's you, careful, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm like, you just brutalized that man in front of him. Of course he's not going to want to go with you. By the way.
Well, hey, can you blame me?
You see? And speaking of brutalizing people, this isn't a brutal thing, but it's a fun thing I find funny. When you recruit people, because you can recruit people to your ship, to be a part of your crew, you don't ask them nicely. You just punch them in the face. Or and if you're fighting someone you want to recruit them, you could also get them low enough with like your sword or whatever, and then just switch to like bare hands and just kick or punch or kick them down. No, punch. You
punch them and then you can get them to join you.
My favorite.
By the way, that mechanic is
my favorite thing to do is to free prisoners in camps and like, thank you, you saved me. Punch, join my crew. You could have just asked me. I was already in your debt. join me or I'll punch you again.
I would agree that
it's so funny.
That. I didn't do a lot of the recruiting because I thought it was a dumb mechanic. Personally,
that's fair. I did it for the stats, obviously, but by the time you get your whole family, by the end of the game, because the game doesn't necessarily end, you still hunt down the cult afterwards if you want to. But the game is effectively main story wise, over. But yeah, once you get your whole family, you can just equip them and all 4 slots that you get.
Strong.
Yeah, you're just a broken ship at that point. No pun intended.
Broken as heck. It was amazing.
But
amazing.
Another gameplay bit, because we've gone through a lot of these points indirectly already. Another gameplay bit is to upgrade those abilities, like you mentioned before. You have to upgrade the Spear of Leonidas, and to do that, you need fragments of the Apple of Eden, right? You get those fragments by killing cultists, and the only way you can find those cultists is by hunting down the ones you do know of just from the main story. You kill them, you get a clue. Sometimes you find them randomly if you're just exploring it. Like I've walked up to someone. No. Sometimes there'll be mercenaries, because also people put bounties on your head, because you can't just do this stuff for free. You can't just hurt people and whatnot for free. Which, by the way, I think this is the only Assassin's Creed game where if you hurt a civilian, no one cares, because sometimes they'll attack you and whatnot. You can kill anyone you want, because that's
only game. Because even the next one, you get in trouble for that. So.
You can still get in trouble for it. Yeah, people who come after you. But going back to the cultists, sometimes those people will be cultists. So I'll be fighting someone who comes to attack me. I'm like, oh man, you're strong. And then I kill them, and suddenly they'll drop a piece. I'm like, oh, you were a cultist. A lot of this game, for me was just a lot of me doing stuff, and then realizing, oh, you were important for some reason.
I didn't have the same feeling at all, but fine. I do want to talk about gear briefly, because this is gonna tie into the next game, Valhalla. The gear was just like, the game shit gear. It just came out of every real corner. You could gear all the time. You got new pieces. No reason to upgrade gear, because you always got something new. Always. Reward you new gear.
I made a habit out of breaking down gear whenever I got it. I'm like, I'm fine with the gear I have. I'm gonna break this down for parts. Bye.
I know, and then you found like legendary gear or whatever that you wanted to use.
And you can't break that down.
No, but you can. Which, thank goodness. Cyberpunk, I'm looking at you. But you can't break that down.
Yeah.
You can upgrade that equipment. So I did upgrade that equipment. But you did get a vast majority of like greens and blue equipment for color that show the level that you can replace, and it's actually better than that legendary item you just got, because boom, you out leveled it. So didn't like that aspect.
In my case, I got a lot of legendary items as well. So
no, you get both.
Yeah,
you get legendary.
And that's why I have a problem.
I feel like the legendary gets outclassed so fast. It's just
it does, and that's why it bothers me that you can't dismantle them anyway. Because I'm like, my inventory's getting cluttered with stuff that I can't break down.
Well, those weapons are unique, which is the cool part.
Yeah, they are, and I understand it should be harder, if not impossible, for you to do that. But I get them like almost every time I kill a mercenary, every time I kill a cultist, every time I reach a major milestone in the story. I had like.
Every time you complete a fort.
Yes, every time I total legendary items that I had in my inventory, I'd say I had about 30 total, not just the weapons but also armor. I'm including all of that, and I'm like, I outscale a lot of this. So at this point, they're there for glamour, because you can't wear a hood in this game, because it's not.
You're not an assassin.
Yeah, you're not an assassin. You can. You get one. You get a shroud. You can wear it if you want, but you have the option. I'm not sure. I think they added this later in a patch, because people really wanted a hood rather than a helmet. So they have this, so you can glamour essentially, or I don't know what it's called in other games.
Yeah, it's not glamour. Transmog.
Thank you, transmog.
It's a popular term.
I forget that it's called transmogging. But
hashtag WoW. Continue.
Hashtag Final Fantasy 14. We will talk about this later.
Off topic.
We pick on each other a lot for this shit. But moving along, yeah. I agree that there's a lot of common and unrare items that you're just like, I outscale this. I don't need this. Why do you keep giving this to me?
Or they go by your level, so every time you level up, basically you shouldn't even upgrade your gear to your max level. That's how it is. But you're not going to reach max level unless you play the game a lot. Which when I say a lot, I mean 70 hours, which is a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
But overall, the gameplay of Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a delight, and I was excited every time I got into combat. For me personally, I was almost always excited when I got into naval combat. That's me personally. I can understand the gripes, but for me personally, I really enjoy naval combat. I prefer on the boots to the ground. I'm on the ground combat. I like the idea of the conquest things you do in the game. Like,
it wasn't done well though.
Huh?
It wasn't done well. It wasn't done well.
Yeah, it wasn't.
The wars,
the
big fights.
Yeah, I could see what they were going for, but I felt like that needed to be fleshed out more for it to be worth it. Because the only time it mattered, at least mattered on that scale to me, or actually felt challenging, is when you had someone like Deimos, who at the end of the game shows up in the middle of one. So
yeah, that was right.
That was fine.
Because you fought all those other people, so you were already injured. So yeah, that one, when you were actually under level or like at level, it was a little harder. But most of the time, you scaled it above because you had to explore the map or do these extra things, right? So that's what made it trivial, and I did like, that they tried to do this conquest thing, but it just didn't. It wasn't done well. You like in this battle, everyone's fighting, and then you have people come attack you. You got to nake the bosses. Like it was You know what I mean? It was But you got a lot of money from it. So if you are playing this game, make sure to do your conquest, regardless if you like them or not.
Do that. Sell gear that you don't need that will sell for a decent amount, but mostly side quests, conquest, main story.
Good to go.
Yeah,
Explore visit all the islands.
Yeah.
And I will say I thought the gameplay was excellent. I still think it remains to be the best Assassin's Creed gameplay wise for me, minus maybe some stealth mechanics, and that's how I felt. I mean, I didn't like combat wise, like actually going into combat, and a lot of how the game flows smoothly. Great, it's just done well, and it's just, you can tell after all this time developing, they finally nailed an RPG style Assassin's Creed.
Yep. And now all we have to do is get through the RPG realm of Assassin's Creed, and in about 10 years they'll redo the genre again, and we'll have Assassin's Creed as a shooter.
Yeah. And it's I hate to say Assassin's Creed is really it's an ancient Greece game, and it's great, and that's all it should have been in the first place, but you gotta sell the game, right? Assassin's Creed it is.
I mean with Black Flag, you were a pirate. It related more to Assassin's Creed, but you were still a pirate, so it didn't need the Assassin's Creed title either. They like doing this sometimes.
They do. I mean, there were some more Assassins at least. But before we go into our closing thoughts on the game, I do want to just add this note for everyone who's made it this far in the video, which is pretty far. I do want to note that you can see our thoughts and how we got into Assassin's Creed and our history with Assassin's Creed in our Assassin's Creed Origins videos. I'll also mention this again during our Valhalla video in the future. But that, we're going to leave those thoughts on how we got into the game there, so we're not really repeating that stuff. So I just want to note that. All right, Daryl, what do you think? Closing thoughts, go.
I have my gripes about some things, like some story checks being made and some being ignored, but that's like my only real criticism of the game. But everything else, this game is huge. It's huge. It's hard. It's hard to do everything at once. There are people who have finished Valhalla and still come back to Odyssey because there's still more to do. And I don't know if I'll do that, but I can't blame them for doing so because it is a fantastic game, and I really did enjoy myself as I played it. There are some aspects of it that are weak, but those weaker points are very much made up for with all the other strengths. And when I say weak, I don't necessarily mean like they shouldn't be in there. Weak just means weak. Like we mentioned. Naval combat could be better. I still enjoyed it, but I feel like there's some things that could be done to enhance that some more. Some stuff with inventory. You got way too much of this, and not enough of that. There are tweaks that could be made, but overall, great game. I loved it.
Excellent. My story, I'll say, AC. I think they lean further away from franchise standards. but I still think it was a very, very successful venture in ancient Greece, even though they kind of leaned from that Assassin's Creed base a little bit. In the world, gameplay, top notch, as I've said. I love the world. I love the gameplay. It has some weak points, as we mentioned, but I mean, overall, as other reviews have stated, the game is just really fun to play. And it does allow for you to come back. If you want to play this game 80 hours, 150 hours, 200 hours, I feel like you can get there. No problem if you really like the gameplay loop. But for me, I do wish they kind of made a slightly smaller, maybe 40-hour experience. I think would have been a little more what I would be hoping for. And I'll have this complaint as we continue through the series of Assassin's Creed. But,
this is one of the games people talked about.
Otherwise, it's a good game.
Yeah, this is one of the games people talked about that has that comes up in conversations of are we in this era now where games want to be like too much? Can we have games out there that are like not just 40 plus hours long, because anyone who's played an RPG would say that's baby numbers compared to what you could be for RPGs, but in terms of content, they're like almost, I'd argue it would rival the length of your average Persona playthrough in like 100 something hours in just extra content alone. That's how much it feels. But that's a different topic for a different video.
And I agree it's an RPG, but it's still so action adventure that it just feels long, and to me, and it is a little bit of fillery. Other people love it, love that it's super long and you can just die like this. Buying this game at $60, I will say you have got $60 worth of content in here.
Got about 3 games
can't
worth.
Deny.
Yeah.
And if you bought it at $20, woo, you saved. You got a good deal on the amount of content. But I mean, that's my final thoughts anyway.
So with that, I think that's all we've got for now. Thanks to all of you for stopping through to listen here at DuoQueue. If you think we might have glossed over something big or might need to expand on something more, feel free to say so in the comments. Or if you want to throw your own opinion in the hat, then feel free to. But until then, next time you're waiting for a party or searching for a lobby, feel free to tune in again while you wait. See ya.